Jalen Milroe is on the rise. We got a fresh mock draft from Kyle Crabbs to break down for you here today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase.
Bro, it's time for mock draft. Let's do some early season NFL draft content for those fan bases who might need a distraction from the current state of affairs of their team. Let's be that source for them of some enjoyable football content that makes them not think about what their team is doing at home in week 4 on Monday Night Football.
Well, the gift that you have for those fan bases, sir,
yes,
is Mock Draft 3.0. Here it is. And I've been diving into your mock drafts. Obviously, we've covered them here on this podcast. And so I'm like very aware of like movers and shakers and new names and all that type of stuff. And you delivered quite a bit of that in this latest iteration, Mock Draft 3.0, which you can find a link to in today's show notes so you can read the entire thing, which you should. And this, of course, is available on the 33rdteam.com, where Kyle is the NFL draft lead. And we got a fresh mock draft, Kyle. We got to start with a quarterback, Jalen Milroe, quarterback, Alabama, big game against Georgia this past week.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was on the podcast or in an off-air conversation, but I said to you recently, I was like, I wonder when the Jalen Milroe conversation happens where he's in this mock draft. And here we are. He's number 8 overall to the Raiders. What are we seeing? We liking this? We're on a good path?
So I think Jalen still has a lot of room to grow. But this is the model of player that the league feels like it is going after. And I think Dane Brugler had referred to Jalen Milroe recently as like a supercharged Jalen Hurts. And I think from a strengths and weaknesses player, style as a player, and not Alabama Jalen Hurts, like Oklahoma version of Jalen Hurts, but getting that in Alabama is kind of what I see with Milroe, with the ability to really work the ball down the field. He doesn't have the quickest release, but man, does he have some power on his arm and the access that he has to all levels of the field. His athleticism is one of his best traits. He looks faster than he's ever looked. And you could ask the Georgia defense about that, because he had a couple opportunities in the field where he really destroyed a lot of angles. We've met him before. We know what his build is like. He's built very sturdy.
Yeah.
You know, this is not a guy that you look at and you're concerned about his ability to sustain through the wear and tear of playing quarterback in the NFL and having to take hits. They're doing a really nice job of mixing schemed throws with like down the field shot plays. And I think that for Milroe, playing in an offense that it's not Ben Grubb's offense, right? Because Ben Grubb's in Seattle with the Seahawks, but Kalen DeBoer, the head coach, bringing a lot of those Washington elements into Alabama, you see the same style of play, and he was able to really hit a lot of shots down the field in this game, and some of it's helped by perhaps the best player in college football, freshman phenom,
Ryan Williams.
Yeah.
Boy, I want that guy on my team.
So that's I got bad news for you. You're not going to be in position in a couple of years.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Not wanting to suck bad enough to get Jamar Chase. I get it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So there's some of that where like he's making some of those plays to kind of help the production for Jalen Milroe, but at the same time, Milroe himself has taken very substantial leaps. And I just think that profile with the tools that he has is the kind of thing that a lot of coaches would be really eager to sign themselves up to work with.
Was it 2 or 3 years ago? We got a chance to meet Jalen and his parents, and the body type, man, he's built like
a
right. He's got the
short edge rusher, is what he's built.
Boy, he's got the stuff. How long did I talk to? It must have been 2 hours.
2 hours.
About at least
about 2 hours. About everything under the sun too.
Everything. I've talked to a lot of high profile football players, but nothing like Jalen Milroe, where like just as genuine of a human being as I've ever spoke with, like, and he's the quarterback at Alabama. I'm the media guy, right? And obviously he was very open to in discussing his game in Alabama and gave me some great information, but like genuinely interested in me and like what I had going on and questions about me and my family. Like just a dude, man. Like, and then his parents are awesome. Probably one of my favorite interactions ever with an athlete. So
and knowing that part of it, he's going to ace the interview process.
Gosh. Yeah.
And getting to know teams, and kind of in that same way that Jalen Hurts was through his pre-draft process. So I think there's a lot of parallels to Jalen Hurts where I think fit will matter for him because it matters to some degree in Alabama, but I also think he has a larger percentage of the workload at Alabama now than what some of the other Alabama quarterbacks have had.
Completed 82% of his passes on 33 attempts for 374 yards against Georgia. That's going to get you into the top 10 here. So excited about the path there. Kyle, when are you going to let me watch this Abdul Carter, man? He's going top 5 to the Panthers.
Now's a good time
for Penn State. Come on, man. I got to see this. See this.
Now's a good time because he finally had like that game. It was played off ball linebacker, transition to the edge, still moves around a little bit in the front. The game that he had against Illinois was kind of the big, like the hallmark, the resume game.
Yeah.
And it was like, I want to see, does with changing positions, does he have a resume game? He had it against Illinois. So Abdul Carter's on the table for you whenever you want to watch him, but
maybe next week it'll be, because I think we got the players for tomorrow.
Do we?
I don't remember what they are, but we did. At some point we got to I know Malaki Starks is part of the list. That's the one guy I'm pretty sure is on there. But I don't know the rest.
Yeah, and we'll want to keep Malaki Starks on there.
Okay,
he didn't have the best game against Alabama, but he's one of the better players in this class, regardless of positional value.
Number 7 in this mock draft, creeping up, Kyle. I know that slotting safeties is very difficult. You've done some research on that and like kind of put me on my place where I was like, man, I don't know about you talking about this Jalen Starks or Malaki Starks going in the late 20s. He seems like a great football player. And you're like, well, what about this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy? I'm like, all right, yep, I don't have much to say.
And I still have that issue, but it was the team in question being the Colts. And I've given him Benjamin Morrison the last 2 times through a mock draft. You get into the top 7, you look at the roster. It's like, I don't want to give him a wide receiver, right? Like they just took A.D. Mitchell. They have Josh Downs. They have Michael Pittman Jr. Are they a quarterback team? Aren't they a quarterback team? They really don't need a lot of help on the offensive line. Like, it's like, what do you do with this team? They just invested a ton in free agency and with their first round pick on the defensive line. It's like, what do I do with this team?
I hear you.
So the answer that I had was, well, I've got a great player who there's some questions about, but then also Jim Nagy, executive director of the Senior Bowl, put something out at the beginning of the week. It was like, talked to a number of executives over the course of the week. Seems like league-wide, there is a lower number of general consensus first-round players in this draft class. I think this is a really compelling draft class, but I will also readily admit there's incomplete resumes and question marks for a lot of players. And I know Jordan Reed echoed that sentiment of this being a meat and potatoes type of class. And some of the elite players just happen to be players that don't play premium positions. Ashton Jeanty, is like that. Malaki Starks is like that. And it's like, okay, well, from a mock draft perspective, if that's true, then I think maybe that is part of the recipe to help a player like a Malaki Starks get drafted early.
All right, we got some fun skill players, offensive skill players entering the chat. We'll talk about them on the other side of it, folks. Be sure to stick with us. Hey, NFL fans, you could start this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same place where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Kyle Crabbs, you mentioned Ashton Jeanty, the outstanding running back, from Boise State. And you have him going in the first round. I think every mock draft should have him going in the first round. And boy, it's a perfect spot. The Los Angeles Chargers at 14. You want to talk about dream fits? I don't need that. I don't want that at all. Don't need that at all. Do you think, as I continue to watch Ashton Jeanty, he's one of the 12 players I've studied for this class. Are we sure this isn't like one of those real special guys? Like, is he Bijan top 10 type back? I know it's complicated with that, but don't you feel like this guy in every imaginable way is exactly what you would want if you really wanted to become a run-heavy team?
Yes, it is. And I think that's how he got into the top 15.
Right.
How much higher could he go? Right. Like, and I look at this was a draft order that used the up-to-date records as of the end of the 4:00 games on week 4. And then I picked the rest of the games. Okay. So it's like a hybrid of like, here's the starting point of everybody's actual record. I'm going to pick the rest of the games. And this was the outcome. But teams in front of the Chargers, like the Rams, the Bears, the Cardinals, the Broncos, I guess maybe the Raiders, but like they've got a quarterback hole and they were a quarterback spot. Not the Colts, not the Browns, the Panthers. Like it just didn't. It didn't add up. Right. The spot mattered a lot with getting him a spot, and it's about as early as I probably felt comfortable, but it was the spot that was like, hey, man, just seeing who's available. Don't really like the wide receivers available in this stratosphere, and I know that's a need for them. Don't really like the way the interior defensive line group has shown out in the first month of the season. This is way too good of a match for me to pass.
Yeah. There's some nice fits. Some nice fits later in the draft. Bengals would be a dream. Pittsburgh with, Najee in a free agent year, that'd be a dream. It feels like the Vikings, Aaron Jones, kind of a 1-year deal there. There's some good. The Dallas Cowboys would be a dream. And let's get there because Dallas Cowboys do pick a running back in this mock. 26 overall running back, Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina.
He's one of the guys for tomorrow.
Okay. So
I remember this. We talked about it.
All right. So we have this guy and we have Malaki Starks.
Yeah. And I think our last one was Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan. I want to call him over there.
Well, please do, because you got a different tight end going in the first round.
Ty Warren.
We're doing this. We're doing him. We got this edge rushers that I can't do. All right. So I'm going to write this down. We have Starks, Hampton, and this Penn State tight end.
Penn State tight end.
Sometimes it runs together. Okay, tell us about Omarion Hampton. I guess we're going to do that really tomorrow. But
what do you want to know?
Why you mocked him number 26 overall of the Dallas Cowboys? It's always aggressive when you put a running back in the first round. That's aggressive.
It is. He doesn't quite have the Ashton Jeanty profile.
I'm out.
Did you know Ashton Jeanty's on pace to break Barry Sanders' single season rushing touchdown record, but Jeanty's on pace to do it in the regular season?
Boy. No, I didn't. He's unbelievable, man.
So Omarion Hampton, 6'1", 220 pounds, elite contact balance. I think the thing that's impressive about him is how little he's getting from his cast around him offensively at UNC. He averages over 4.5 yards after contact per rush. He gets less than 1.25 yards per carry before contact. So they do not win at the line of scrimmage for him. And his production profile is still very strong. I think he's a player that has every down potential I don't think that the days of somebody being a true bell cow, we talked about that. Was that on the air or off the air?
It was, no, it's on takes. Yeah.
Last week? Yeah. Like, I think those days are largely gone, but I think he is a player who has the ability to play all three downs. He had a good receiving profile last year. The receiving profile has been modest this year, but he's a guy who wins, creates yards for himself, has enough open field juice, can play on passing downs, and it's a need for Dallas. And again, you go back to, I think some of the trench play, it's a really compelling trench group on both sides of the ball, but I don't think those groups have performed through the first month of the season in a way which there's a lot of excitement for it right now. And it just left that as an opening that, much like the Chargers with Jeanty, it's like, man, this is a really good fit. This is a really dire need for a team that can't run the ball in Dallas, despite some investments in some physical offensive linemen that you figure it's going to get better when BB plays more and Tyler Smith continues to become more experienced and Tyler Guyton gets more experience on it. Like, they have that piece of it. Now it's okay. Let's not run Zeke Elliott weekend at Bernie style behind it.
Slash Rico Dowdle / Deuce Vaughn. It's a mess, man.
Right.
It's a mess.
Right.
Jerry Jones would like you to know they could not afford Derrick Henry. I wish they could. They could afford Derrick Henry.
If you got the contracts done earlier, you could have. That's the thing. There's a world in which you don't wait until the start of the regular season to get Dak and CeeDee Lamb done, in which case your salary cap position would have been such that you could have afforded Derrick Henry.
This might be a different football team with him in the fray. All right, Kyle Crabbs, Tyler Warren, tight end, Penn State. He's in here, number 32. I heard all about Colson Loveland as tight end 1. This is the guy that goes in the mock draft. I don't know a thing about him. That's about to change because you're going to tell me things about him now.
So Tyler Warren actually has like a quarterback package at Penn State. They do some, like some Wildcat type stuff with him. His catch radius is unbelievable. He is listed at 6'6", 250 pounds. Very graceful at the catch point. Don't look at the raw numbers here for Tyler Warren, just because the offensive efficiency for Penn State has been a little bit of a question mark. He's one of the last remaining COVID eligibility players. So he's a fifth-year senior. He played in 13 games in 2021, 12 games in 2022, 13 games in 2023, 2 games in 2020 in the COVID season, and now obviously playing in a fifth season. So he's an older player. I think it shows as far as like his maturity as a tight end in general and that vast menu of responsibilities. But I think in an offense like Penn State, where you're not just thriving in the passing game, it's allowed him to be a little bit more of a complete type of player. So he's somebody that they are finding ways to get the ball into his hands for. And I think he's got the blocking chops to really come in and make an impact for a team sooner rather than later. And I put him with the Chiefs because we don't know how long we're going to see Travis Kelce keep going.
Right. They just extended him, but I mean, he had 146 yards against Bowling Green, huh? All right. Tyler Warren, looking forward to. He's on the list. No, yeah, he's on the list. So we'll expand that conversation on tomorrow's episode. I want to sneak one offensive lineman in here. In the next segment, we'll talk about some defensive names. Seahawks picking Alabama offensive lineman Tyler Booker.
Yep.
Just the next one. I mean, is this just the next one, or is this? What do we need to know about Booker?
So I think he's probably an interior guy at the next level. 6'5", 325 pounds. He fits the profile of like what John Schneider has gone after as far as a body type and a ability to reset the line of scrimmage. I don't think he's got the movement skills to really shine at tackle. Although throughout the course of his career, he has made some time there at tackle. But he's somebody who you look at Seattle and it was more of a needs along with state of the class type of pick. where they're picking in this weird spot where I had them at 9. Was it 19?
Yeah.
18. So you have a late, like, fringe playoff team who is really struggling to protect the quarterback, and they have enough answers at tackle, or at least you would feel like they do. We'll see what happens with Abraham Lucas, but they also have George Fant under contract right now. So where's the long-term plan at tackle? Did that make sense? The tackle that I liked that was still in that range plays left tackle, and that's where Charles Cross plays. So it was like, let's just build the trenches for this team. And Booker felt like the right type of player to put there based on John Schneider and what he's going after.
All right, we got a couple of defensive names that have snuck into the first round. We're going to talk about them on the other side of it, folks. Be sure to stick with us. Purchasing tickets for events can be stressful, but it doesn't have to be, and it isn't if you have the Gametime app. Gametime is the fast and easy way to purchase tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They've got great deals on flash deals. They give you a seat view. They send the ticket straight to your phone, so you don't have to dig through emails to find it. But I also love this. They specialize in last-minute tickets. And right now, my wife and I, we love to go to concerts. And right now, everyone's announcing their tour for next year. You think I know if on May 3rd next year I'm going to be able to get to a concert? Well, I don't have to make that choice today because Gametime has great tickets right up until the day of the event. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's Gametime. The Bucks, number 24 overall. They get linebacker Jalen Walker out of Georgia. And I don't think I've heard much about off-ball linebackers this year at all. This guy has entered the chat. What do we need to know?
Well, don't get too excited because I do think he is more of a pass rusher than he is anything else. You know how LSU used Devin White as a player to play on passing downs and get downhill and kind of get into a gap, and that guarantees you're into your run fit. And sometimes that's coming from off the ball. Sometimes that's walked up on the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the same profile. It's not a 1-for-1, but this is somebody who wins playing forward, and he's capable of playing on the edge. He's also capable of, and I'm in the process of pulling up. I want to make sure I get his snap counts right as far as like where he's used. But he can really trigger from depth. He can win and bend the edge, which is really impressive. And I think his versatility. He's played 71 snaps on the defensive line and 61 snaps in the box as a stack backer. So it's almost a 50-50 split. So he's more of a hybrid type player, but knowing what Tampa's edge rush room looks like while also knowing that the long-term profile of the linebacker room is a little bit in flux, it felt like a really good opportunity to attack more than one potential fit and need for a coach defensively who I think could actually get a lot of run out of him.
Very interesting. It feels like I understand the type of player. It won't be for every team, but for the teams that like this type of player, he's going to be very valuable.
Yeah.
Got an edge rusher here out of Virginia Tech going to the Lions, Antwaun Powell-Ryland. I know it's all like whenever you do a mock draft and you pick a player for the Lions, you just kind of know that they're going to have a certain type about them. So I'm interested in not only Powell-Ryland, but if he does have that Lions vibe.
He plays hard. I think that's the number one thing that you will notice very quickly about Powell-Ryland is he plays hard. So this is a transfer from Florida. And we went through this in the pre-show. There's a lot of really talented players across the country that are transfers from Florida, unfortunately. And playing at Virginia Tech, he's one of the top sack artists in the country this year. And what stood out to me when I watched the reel of the sacks was the ways in which he won was pretty diverse. He will win across your face. He will win with an inside spin move. He will convert speed to power. He will simply run the arc off of you. He has good length. I think he's got good conversion and ability to convert speed to power to collapse angles and get off of it. I think he's definitively a pass rusher right now at his core. But when you consider what else Detroit has in their defensive infrastructure and how they've built out the rest of the roster, I can see that piece being worth adding for Detroit, just because that's kind of the thing right now. It was interior defensive line. Well, then they made investments there. And now the other edge rusher feels like the spot that has like the looming question mark over it. And I believe Marcus Davenport went down with an injury. Yeah. So now it's going to be even more pronounced for them moving forward.
I wanted to give you a shout out on one of my favorite picks. I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but the pick that I saw and I was like, oh yeah, I get it. I mean, outside of the Chargers and Jeanty, like that's perfect. The Broncos with Luther Burden, the receiver out of Missouri. Like if Bo Nix is going to play this type of football, I think that skill set, that yards after catch ability would be very, very valuable for him. So that was a fit that I really like. You have any like that where you're just like, oh man, that felt good putting that pair together, that prospect with that team?
Jeanty was like that. Let me see. I'm just scrolling. It's probably going to end up being a later pick.
I know. Maybe I stole the thunder there with Burden.
Oh, it didn't help because that was definitely a good one.
And I asked you about 8 players, and we already talked about I mean, yeah, there's a very reduced sample size here, but
I like Siobhan Revel to Minnesota too. This is a corner from East Carolina, and I know he's out for the year with a season-ending injury. He tore his ACL at practice, but the ball skills, the length, playing in Minnesota, the physicality that he has, knowing what Brian Flores likes in his defense, assuming Brian Flores is going to continue to be there in Minnesota. I don't know that this is a player that would have been available at 23 if he didn't have an injury. And I know sometimes there's a risk associated with those kinds of picks. But I think the good news potentially for Minnesota in this hypothetical world is you should be far enough removed from the injury that he unfortunately did suffer in September to have a pretty good idea as far as what the medical profile is going to look like when you actually have to put the card in.
Fun Mac, Kyle Crabbs. People can find it in the link in today's show notes. Read the whole thing. 32 picks, analysis on all of them. We talked about 25% of it, so there's still plenty more for you to uncover on the actual article.
So go check it out and make sure you keep it locked in here on the Locked On Network. It's all of your teams every day. We don't just say we live it. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Make it a great rest of your day. We are out of here.